Hi, everyone. Before we get into the episode, we're starting things a little bit differently. First of all, we want to thank you so much. We saw the insight for the number of listens this last week, and the numbers were very humbling. So thank you so much for listening. Special shout out to Patrick Kampmeyer, who is, you can see, is the number one fan. You can always email us at talkingtwinpeaks@gmail.com. We will take a look at your comments, questions, concerns, insights that you want to give us as well. We very, very happy to hear from you. Joe, do you have anything else to say to the amazing fans that we have?
Yeah, please send all your YouTube covers of just you and I to Paul. He loves that song so much. Yeah, thank you guys. It's awesome knowing you guys are all out there listening. It's really fun for us to do, and we're glad that you're up. You guys are listening to us ramble about a show we love. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If someone does, if I start getting an influx of you and I covers, I will put them on our YouTube channel. We will put them on the Joe Down, and we will actually play them on our podcast. That is something I will totally do. So, all right. Well, yes, from both Joe and I, thank you again, and we hope you enjoy this episode, part 12.
Hi, and welcome back to a podcast above a convenience store, Talking Twin Peaks. I'm Joe Fremming. With me, as always, is Paul Muad'Dib. How's it going, Paul?
What's your name? It's going good. It's bittersweet this episode. It's the last episode that we're going to be doing of the show.
Yeah, and it's an interesting episode too because it feels like a coda. We talked about this briefly before we started recording. It feels like, the end of a piece of music, end of a piece of art.
Yes.
I feel like, we'll get into it. It certainly feels like it left on a cliffhanger. The more I think of it, I don't think of it as much of a cliffhanger anymore. But we'll get into that.
We'll definitely get into that. And what I also looking forward to, we talked about it before we get into it, we're really going to dig into the theories in this episode as well, like the things that we were waiting to get through all of it, like what does it mean? So yeah, this might get a little longer, might get a little odd. It might go some really weird fucking tangents, but it needs to happen. So go ahead and
because it even has me rethinking how we see the original series, which I'll get into. I have a theory about that too now.
I'm excited to hear that because I have some theories, especially what happened at the end of this episode. So go for it.
All right. So like I said, this feels like a coda. The episode before it, it's kind of like in Wayne's World, we get the happy ending. In a sense, we got that. This it starts off Mr. C's in flames in the Black Lodge. It looks like a pretty slick black metal album cover.
It really does. Mm-hmm.
He bursts into flames. We get another a seed. Mike puts the hair that Coop gave him and creates another tulpa. He creates another Cooper. This one seems a little more
affable.
Yeah, this affable. I think, and we get a nice ending for Janie E and Sonny Jim, which is nice because they're kind of innocent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With this whole thing, like they kind of fell victim of Mr. C and his tulpa, because they didn't know what that was, but so if anything, they get a happy ending here. Now, then we go back to Coop, where we saw Cooper lost Laura in the woods from Fire Walk with Me. We hear the scream again. She vanishes. Then he appears back in the Black Lodge with Mike, and we get the infamous "Is this future or is it past?" This is now kicking off, I think, a theory you and I have been spitballing with. Cooper's on an infinite loop.
Yes.
He's on a infinite loop of always trying to save or whatever Laura Palmer. And this is not his first rodeo. And we kind of get that. We get kind of hints at that throughout the show. But it feels like this is just like, because things slightly changed, because a lot of it looks a lot like the first episode. Mike is he vanishes, and then you see him in the corner waving him over, brings him to the bubblegum tree.
Which always makes me, I sound like this.
Yeah, and he sounds like an old man slurping soup.
Yep.
Is this the story of the little girl who lived down the lane? Is it? This is, a lot of people threw this with merit with the Audrey thing. I think Charlie and Audrey referenced this, but I think that's probably more of Audrey's psychosis being influenced by the Lodge than anything. Mm-hmm. Laura whispers in his ear again. So again, we're getting these things like in the original run, we had him in the same, trying to find out his murder, who killed Laura Palmer. She does this. We see at the beginning of this with the return, and then we're seeing it again, and we're now Laura. It's no longer who killed Laura Palmer, it's where is Laura Palmer.
Yep.
This is why I think he's just in a stuck, it's like Sisyphus rolling the rock up the mountain. Mm-hmm. He just, no matter how hard he tries, no matter what he does, he's stuck in, he's like Ronaldo stuck in a groove.
Yep.
Is that what you're kind of getting from this?
Let's get through this episode, and I want to get into what I'm thinking, because I can see that, but I have some other ideas as well. That, yes, I think that's one interpretation, and I lean towards that. Like, I see that's definitely something I see as a possibility and gravitate towards. But there's other weird ideas that I have, so I guess I'll say it now, because you have a lot of these things, and I'll get to the next part. So the next part, we find Cooper and Diane.
Hold on.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Before we got to, because like going in that loop again, he sees Leland, mm-hmm. and Leland says, "Find Laura." Now this has more weight now that we know, because now Laura's missing. If we remember in the season 2 finale, he sees Leland in the lodge, and Leland says, "I did not kill my daughter." So it's like it kind of gives more like weight, I think, to the he's trapped. He's fucking he's fucking things up.
Yes, and it also goes to show that when you get involved with the lodge, you're always involved with the lodges.
Yep.
Like there is no escape.
It's like Olive Garden. When you're there, you're family. This podcast is brought to you by Olive Garden.
Olive Garden. Don't shit in the soup. All right.
But yeah, now we have Cooper and Diane. Go on. You started that.
Yeah. So they leave. Now here's the part I'm going to bring up here. This is one of my theories. So they leave, and it's Glastonbury Grove. It's the Black Lodge. One of my theories is that Cooper never left the Black Lodge. It's like a hell. This is what the Black Lodge is doing to him. It's just fucking with him for eternity. That's one theory of mine. one theory. I don't like it, but when it came out of the Black Lodge,
we like Cooper, so we don't want that as his destiny.
We don't want that as his destiny. But when you think about it, why is the Black Lodge still continuing to help him at this point? The Black Lodge has nothing to gain. And again, when he comes out, he's coming out of the Black Lodge. I know there's the talk of the waiting room, the White Lodge, the Black Lodge, but he's in the Black Lodge. So I kind of feel like that this could be one of the things that they're doing. They're fucking with him. Now, that's one theory. But then let's go on. He gets with Diane, and she asks if it's really him, and he's like, yes. And they have to drive 530 miles, and Diane doesn't want to do it. She wants to go back. When they get there, he has to stop. He's like, okay, this is it. When we go through, he's like, kiss me. And he's like, because when we go through it, we may not be the same. And they drive through, obviously, a portal. When they get there, they get to this motel. And there is, there are people who really hated this sex scene, by the way. In reviews, they're like, this was so unnecessary, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I loved it. I mean, it worked for what it was.
With Prayer by the Platters playing. And yeah.
Right. And let's be honest. Laura Dern still has an amazing body.
I gotta say, her in that red wig, that like kind of like bob haircut thing, I really like. So like, it was like, now, okay, we're kind of rushing.
Well, no,
there's a lot going on here.
There is a lot going on.
So the Diane thing is probably I'm more interested in the Diane thing.
Okay.
In a sense than the Laura thing, because I think we've kind of, but we'll get it. But so my theory now is when he leaves Glastonbury Grove, it's the curtain call that they referenced. Mm-hmm. This is where I was kind of talking where it feels to me, because he comes out and he's a different Cooper.
Yes. I was going to bring this up. Yes.
So my theory on this, because we don't get the Cooper we've known from the previous series and all that. To me, it was almost like what we saw of Twin Peaks was kind of like the idealized events of what happened in Cooper's mind, in a sense. Mm-hmm. It felt like, he's the White Knight. He's always on. He's the hero, blah, blah, blah. There's not a hint of cynicism and really darkness in him. When he comes out, we get a combination of Cooper and Mr. C. Mm-hmm. For me, it feels like the whole run of the series was kind of like we're not really seeing it. Because the show, in a sense, it gets a different vibe once Cooper comes in. Yep. So it's like we're seeing the events through Cooper's mind's eye. Like
he's what do they call it? An untrustable,
unreliable narrator.
Thank you, an unreliable narrator.
That's kind of like where I'm leaning.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting. And this is the great thing of Twin Peaks. Like we can all have like these great theories and all that, and that's kind of like how I see it. I'm not 100% on it, but it feels like it kind of like that's kind of like the commentary a bit, because he is a different Cooper.
He is. Now, here's my theory. Here's my actual running theory on this, because I apologize for going through, because there's a lot of things I want to touch upon what happens in that, but I just wanted to talk about that certain point, because there's a scene there where at the end of there, what I wanted to get to was the Richard and Linda thing.
Yes.
What I believe is that what we're seeing is not only has the Lodge been messing with time, it's beyond that. It's dimensional. And I think we're seeing a different dimension, Cooper. I don't even, and there's things at the end that will lead to that. And I think Cooper's asking the wrong question at the end of the episode.
I agree 100%. Slightly different, but I agree. He's asking the wrong thing.
He's asking the wrong thing. And what I think the question should be is, where are we?
Yes, 100%. Yes. And because it feels like when Diane and Cooper cross into this portal, it brings them to a place. And my theory is the longer you're in this place, the more you forget who you are. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it like when the show ended. It feels like it's a different dimension that was created to protect people from their almost to protect people from their trauma. In a sense. That's why we see Diane see her double when they pull up to the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like once she sees that, the person we see is Linda after that.
Yep.
That is Linda. It's like Diane has escaped. She's escaping the trauma of what Mr. C did to her. The trauma of, not only what Mr. C, but the person she loves looking exactly like Mr. C. Yeah.
Yes. So let's back up now, because that's the part I want to get to. So I really jumped ahead and skipped there, but let's get back to the drive and everything, and they have to go exactly 430 miles, which I'm going to assume is a numerology thing.
Yep.
I didn't look too deep into this one.
Well, it's what the fireman said.
Yep.
430, Richard and Diane, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Mm-hmm. And we already got the 2 birds, 1 stone, right? Earlier. And so then, again, Diane is totally against this, does not want to do it. She knows what's going on. Obviously, Cooper knows what's going on. But again, we are getting a different Cooper. His mannerisms, the way he's talking, the way he's behaving, it's a different Cooper. And the theory to me is that it's a different dimensional Cooper.
Yeah. I would almost, kind of going back to like how we saw Twin Peaks before, the run through his mind's eye.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the real Cooper. This is how he is in real life.
That we are taking away from the quirkiness that was kind of the filter on it, and now we're seeing the grittiness of what it really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he gets back in the car. He confirms that it's the right place. They don't want to go, and then they drive through the portal, and it changes from night to day. There's a lot of transitional things there. There's a lot of sound going on in the background, too. I don't know if you caught that or not.
Yeah, a lot of electric distortions. And
mm-hmm. So then they get to the motel, and Cooper goes inside, and Diane sees herself. And I think this is very much, to me, as you talked about, where she's Linda. Do you remember 2001, the ending of 2001? When
it's been a long time since I've seen it, but
okay. So when Dave Bowman is at the end of it, he finds himself when he gets through all the sparkly laser light show thing. He finds himself with the alien, and it's him. And then he looks in the room and he sees himself getting older, and it's kind of a different him. And then he's that one. And then he sees himself old in the bed, and he's that one. And then he sees himself the space baby, and he's the space baby. Because 2001, of course, it's going to have a space baby. I think this is exactly what's happening with Diane. I think you're seeing it where, yes, it's that Diane has left, that trauma, that type of thing. But see, the trauma is still there, though, because when they have sex, which I also question from the Secret History of Twin Peaks, if it isn't one of the sex rituals as well.
I feel like it is. I feel like that is, but I think, and there's a way, the sex is like, it seems like it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Or like, what my theory is now Linda. I think it's Linda, and we get a hint of like why this may be too with her note. Cooper is Cooper, and he's calling her Diane.
Yep.
And then they kind of like have this weird sex, and then she leaves. This is Diane's. She's escaped, and now Linda is free in this world where they kind of forget. They get to forget. And she says, "I don't recognize you anymore."
Well, and during the sex, when she's on top of him, she is covering his face.
Yep.
Throughout it. And I think that's part of the trauma, right? She doesn't want to see Mr. C. And the question to me that I think also is the implication here is that it's not the Cooper that we know either.
Yeah.
Because she was in love with the Cooper that we knew, and from the original one, and this is. I mean, she kisses him, and then she has to cover her face. It's there's something there. There's a there that I think is occurring that's giving us a clue that this isn't the Cooper that we know.
But I thought, and I think she's covering his fate. This is kind of like she's exercising those demons, and then she's going to be free. The memories are fading, and then she's able to live out the rest of her life without that trauma. It's I think this is a different Cooper. I think this is like I said, this is like more of a real Cooper. I think the original run and even all the way in the return, it's all quirky and kind of silly. Mind's Eye Cooper,
I'm going to throw just a wrench in that because I can agree with that. I do agree with that. But I have another idea that I just want to throw out to you. In this other dimension, you become the other thing in it. That's why Laura Palmer is Carrie Page.
Yep.
And Cooper is somewhat immune to it, but Linda isn't, or Diane isn't. And there may be a Diane back, or maybe there isn't a Diane, and now she's Linda in this dimension. I don't know. I think there could be that element going on as well, in opposite of the other, of what you brought up. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on here that can be up to a lot of interpretation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we also lose a lot of the original, like kind of the Cooper or whatever. Like even an idealized version. He's more like gung ho and serious. I think he's starting to kind of he's changing. He's more. It almost feels like muscle memory with him with some of this, like when he's in the diner, and like when he's meeting Carrie, and it seems like he's just very different.
Very different.
Like he's being affected by this place too now.
Yes, because. Let's go. Okay, so let's after the motel, they get the letter, and the letter just explains that she can't look at him, and she calls him Richard. He's like, Richard, and he leaves the hotel, and
it's a different motel too.
It's a different motel. It's a different car. Everything has changed around him, and this leads me, and 430 miles from Washington State. 430 miles is not Texas. I'll tell you that right
now. Hence the portal.
Hence the portal. That's not Texas. I'll tell you, I've driven cross country before. Boy, there's a big difference between 430 miles and about 1,600.
Yeah, a couple days, I'd say.
just a few. So he's in Texas. So I think yes, the everything's kind of adapting around him, and everything's being affected. He reason why he goes to the Eat at Judy's, and I think it's because he's like Judy, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I think this place was created. This Odessa is a safe place, in a sense. So Eat at Judy's is something in this world Cooper would know that would be where he'd have to go and look. He would see it right away. And like for us and the fans, that's on purpose. We hear about Judy since Fire Walk With Me. That stands out for us too. That's Lynch giving us a message that this is a message to Cooper.
Yep, completely agree with you on that. Yep, absolutely. And so he goes inside, and we get Francesca Eastwood, who is the gorgeous daughter of Clint Eastwood, and she gets a little offended. Is there another waitress here? It's her day off. Actually, it's her third day off, and then a couple of these rednecks are trying to grab her ass, and Cooper's having none of it. Explain what happens there, Joe, because I love this scene.
Well, Paul, Cooper's living in a society. I mean, living in a civilized manner. You don't do that. Yeah, he pisses off these rednecks, to which, and this is where he feels more like Mr. C in this scene. Yeah,
yes.
The one guy he just kicks in the nuts and then grabs the gun and shoots the other guy in the foot.
Which I think Mr. C did earlier, didn't he? Didn't he shoot someone in the foot earlier?
I feel like he did.
And
it's like, I think, like, if part of you is being washed away in this, another part's going to be emerging. And, like, no matter what, he's always going to have that darker element. Like, Mr. C was, a doppelganger, but it's also a part of like Cooper's makeup anyway. So that's in there.
Part of who he is.
Yes. So like Mr. C is a take charge kind of guy that when Cooper takes charge, he becomes pretty frightening. Again, this is why I think he's like what we see in the original run of the show. It's like soap opera-y and quirky. I think that's, that's why it's different. Like this is like how Cooper kind of actually is. This is how an FBI man is.
Yep. I completely agree with that. And he, one of the things that really stood out to me was he goes over, says to the waitress, give me the address. She doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, this is very Mr. C, completely Mr. C. Give me the address.
He's talking slower like Mr. C too. His cadence is very slower and deeper.
Absolutely. And then he takes the guns, still loaded guns. The Cooper we knew would have, if he was gonna do this, would have at least taken the bullets out.
Yeah.
But instead, he puts these guns in there and says, I don't know if the heat's going to set off those bullets, but I wouldn't be there if I were you.
Yeah.
And then he leaves. Like, yeah, he's ruthless in this one.
Yeah. The Cooper we know from the original show would take the bullets out. Warn the guy before, like, step back, please. This might go off on you. Like, this is a menacing kind of a take on Cooper. And again, I think this is more of the reality of who Agent Cooper probably was.
Yep.
He deep fries it. And then, he gets the address for Carrie, drives there, and then this is another hint that this is Lodge adjacent or created. Outside her house is the telephone pole with the number 6 on it.
Yes.
Scene we saw in Fire Walk with Me. We saw Carl saw it when the kid got ran over. Yeah.
Yep. That has been become a very familiar scene or object in the show. And he knocks on the door. He's asking, for Laura. She tells him she's Carrie Page, and he's like, "I think you're Laura Palmer. Your mom's Sarah."
Well, she doesn't register when he says your father is Leland. She doesn't really register, but when she says Sarah, something kind of
goes right
familiar to her. Something I did not pick up on the first 2 times I saw this. So
nope, I didn't either. But yeah, when Sarah clicks with her, and she's like, "Well, I need to go anyway, so I guess going with the FBI is going to be the way to do it." And Cooper goes inside. And there's just a rotting dude sitting on her couch with a assault with like a semi-full automatic rifle laying on the ground.
Yeah, he's shot in the head.
Yep.
And he has like what looks like almost like a bob orb sticking out of his stomach. Which,
yes.
That raises all sorts of other questions. But, of course, Lynch doesn't give us any answers. I mean, we could hypothesize that maybe that's another dimensional Bob that Carrie just went all John Rambo on.
It's very possible, right? I mean, there's a lot of these things that are happening here. Hence why we call this Dakota. Well, and then we get the image of the white horse. Right?
Which is, it's... big references, considering that's what Sarah sees before Leland would murder. Cooper saw it in the Black Lodge. The woodsman recites it in the poem, part 8. So yeah, it has a big relevance here. Yep,
which just leads Cooper, which I think is just another clue to Cooper that this is the right place to be. And then we get this kind of. So one of the things we've not talked about during this episode is the meandering. And this episode is a little frustrating because you're like, it's the last episode, come on. And there is so much meandering and Lynch extending beats and things of that if you didn't know 10 minutes in this episode that you weren't going to get what you wanted out of it, or like this is not going to be what you think it's going to be, I feel bad for you. Because I knew that first viewing that I was like, oh god, here we go.
So I like the meandering, and I'll tell you why. Again, this feels like it's a coda. It's kind of the unwinding. It's the end. It's given us beats that are familiar. It's not hammering us over the head with it, but we're getting pretty obvious beats. I liked it because let me while they're meandering and they're endless driving, it lets me think about the episode. It gives me time to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like it.
I'm not disagreeing with that because I think that was necessary because there's a lot going on in this that there are those things where you got to disseminate. What did I just see?
Yeah.
Instead of going boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. The part that I could see where I, like I said, when I was watching it first time and I was just like, I know I'm not going to get what I want out of this ending.
We knew that going in.
We did. But I'm just saying, like, there was that whole, there's that little bit of, okay, we might get, we might actually get something here. Frost might, allow, no, forget it. Like I said, if 10 minutes in you didn't realize it, that's on you. For the next several minutes of the episode, it's just them driving together.
Yep. And to be totally honest, just to make it on time for our review, I fast forwarded. I've seen it before. Carrie's kind of rambling on about Odessa. It's like a meditative moment where we're allowed to especially if you're watching, the night this aired, it was back to back with part 17.
Yep.
So it really, when you watch them back to back, like I said, it really gives you time to meditate on what had just happened with, all the way. And that's why I like it. At the time when I was watching, I was really pissed off.
Right.
Jesus Christ, more driving.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I remember watching it for the first time being like, fuck.
But, I mean, it works, I think, more now that I think about it more. We're never going to get concrete answers to Twin Peaks. And what follows after all the meandering kind of nails that home, and that it's a constant mystery with it, But we'll get to that when we get to it. They're driving. And when they get to Twin Peaks is different, Paul.
Twin Peaks is different.
Double R looks different.
Double R does look different, doesn't it? It's not the same Double R.
It's like a 50s diner, like one of those chain ones.
Yeah, it does. It does. And they're driving around town. Nothing is familiar to
Carrie.
And then we get to the Palmer house. And she doesn't recognize it. And they go up to the door. And there's a knock. I'm just hammering the aspect of it. So then a woman opens the door and there's a conversation.
Fun fact.
Yes.
The woman who opened the door, the real life owner of the Palmer house.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yep. Lynch decided to put her in the show. So, yep, she actually owns that house.
And so she says she's Mrs. Chalfont,
she says she's Mrs. Tremont.
She's Mrs. Tremont.
They bought the house from
Mrs. Chalfont. So we know what's happening here.
These are some lodge fuckers.
This is some lodge fuckery.
Yeah, and it's even eerier because when she's talking to the person in the house, they're off screen, and this is this sort of mirrors when Hawk earlier goes to Sarah's house,
and we can't see the inside of it.
Yeah, and there's commotion going on, and Sarah's like, "Yeah, leave it" or whatever. I think that's kind of like what this is kind of referencing, or what that scene with Hawk and Sarah was foreshadowing, that there's an entity in that house.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you that I think there's something with the house as well. And so Cooper, he's totally thrown off by this. They both walk away. And he's like, what year is this? Which is the wrong question.
Yep.
And then Laura, you hear Sarah very faintly, Laura?
And it's from the pilot.
From the pilot. And
Laura screams.
Laura screams. Cooper freaks out. The lights go out in the house. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
And then we're stuck with a photo of Laura whispering in Cooper's ear. Which is, again, that's why my theory is he's in a loop. It's just a constant loop of trying to save Laura. And part of what I think leads credence to that is Frost was asked about the meaning of the episode. He said the actions that Cooper takes have consequences, and they're unforeseen and unanticipated, and they open the door to all sorts of strange and perhaps enigmatic things taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads me to think it's just he's keep try as he might. Laura's the one; she's the chosen golden orb or whatever, but she's still human.
Yes,
and she makes human decisions, which are sometimes bad. As we saw, Carrie Page shot that man cold blood in her apartment, her house. So, yeah, I mean, try as he might, I think he's always trying to save her. He's always trying to be the white knight, and it's not. That's not how life is. That's not,
Nope, it's not. And so I think there's, again, Cooper and... So I think that Cooper and Cooper and Laura linked, obviously.
Yep.
And so I think there's part of that. And again, I think there is this, it goes beyond time and space. How do I explain this? Because you bring up the point that, maybe what we're getting is the narrative. What I'm wondering is that one of the dimensions?
It could have been too. The original run of the series was a dimension, now we can go into timelines. Butterfly effect. That's another thing that we can attribute to that Frost quote. If you fuck up something in the past, Marty McFlying it, as we joke, but the whole thing with Back to the Future is Marty goes back and fucking changes things, but it changes it for the better as opposed to whatever. But it's still like the actions.
That's the whole Back to the Future 2 is about. It didn't.
Yeah, and so it's like it's like these actions have consequences, and maybe the version of Twin Peaks where it's all quirky, maybe it was real, but it's changing because not just the law, and I don't think the Lodge is changing the timelines. I think it's Cooper. Well, I think he's the real culprit here.
I think there's more to it than that. I think there's all these things in conjunction with each other. I think are what's doing. I think Cooper's the catalyst, but I think they're allowing all this.
I mean, and I think with the alternate timelines is why Jeffries is so confused when we see him not only in Fire Walk with Me, but also when we see him in The Return as the giant teapot. He's not sure which Cooper he's talking to, when or where. It's these timelines are splintering, and that kind of goes in why we saw in the diner, it changed at the very end of that episode. Timelines are shifting and altering in real time. So I think that's part of it. There's a timeline where Laura dies. There's a timeline where she's saved, but
yeah. And I think there's a timeline where she's again. I think like we saw with Cooper, and again in the first one, and then we see him here, and then Mr. C, and then I think and then Carrie's different. The Tremons are different. I think that's what we're seeing. Like it's not just a full circle loop. It's like what we saw with that 8, where it kind of goes off track.
Yeah,
I think that was a big clue in episode 17, where that 8, and then they kind of back up. It's so like, think of a Hot Wheels loop where a car goes up, comes around, comes down, but it's just off to the side a little bit. I think that's the kind of looping we're getting.
Yep.
It's like a spiral outward. It's a 3D loop, if that makes sense.
Yep, I agree. I get it. And I just want to let our listeners know, we are not stoned in any way, shape, or form.
No,
even though it may sound like.
No, it may sound like we are. Honestly, I'm been sober for years.
Same here. Like
and I mean, I don't even drink that much. I think, actually, I take that back. This last weekend before we recorded, I did get drunk. That was the first time in a year that I drank.
Yeah, but still, it's like there's like so many weird and heavy, just like concepts with it, and the fractured timelines, the alternate dimensions. I mean, it all plays in, like, which makes it hard to come up with a grand unified theory of Twin Peaks, because I don't think that could ever exist.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So there's just so much going on in this regards, and I think that. So, I mean, all these theories are right. Like, it could be the unreliable narrator. It could be that it's just another dimension. It could be a lot of different things. We don't know. You know what I mean? And they throw these all out there, I think, knowing full well that it could be these. But I'm not saying we're right, we're wrong. We still got to go through the next book, which will shed some light on some things.
It kind of sheds light, kind of like the memory thing too, because it that plays a big. Tammy stands up; her memory starts fading on the events of what we saw.
But we know from Philip Jeffries,
Cole remembers the unofficial versions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah,
it's crazy, and like unreliable narrator, like dimensions, timelines, like it's crazy, but it's so fun to like just dissect.
Mm-hmm. Very fun to dissect, and so I just there's just so much there. But yeah, that's my theory, is that it's everything every time. I think this is the problem. Cooper always ends up getting fucked by getting into the Black Lodge and getting fucked up.
Well, it seems like no matter what turn of events happen in history, Cooper ends up in the lodge. And it's regarding Laura Palmer. It's like lock, stop. It's always going to be Laura related, why he gets trapped in there. It's like their destiny in a sense, which makes me kind of like appreciate, because I've said, when we watch Fire Walk with Me, I consider the end of that the official end of Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. I see that as Cooper and Laura's victory, when she sees the angel and she's finally put at rest. For me, that takes place after all of this, what we saw with The Return.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think
so. Cooper is victorious at some point. We just don't see it.
And I question if he isn't. So, because all these things are in these different times, and he is, and I question if he isn't already like an agent of if he isn't part of the White Lodge. You know what I mean? Because like we saw that with Briggs's head in the lodge.
Yeah.
At some point, like I think Cooper's something like that.
He could be, because when we saw with Briggs, he was in there for so long that he became an entity of it. Cooper was in just as long as Briggs.
Right. Right.
Like, once Briggs was his body was found murdered or whatever, that's around the same time Cooper escaped too.
Yes, and but I think the difference is Briggs was in the White Lodge. Cooper's been stuck in the Black Lodge for 15 years, or for the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So I think that might be part of what we saw. Then the difference between the new Cooper is the influence of having been in that Black Lodge. But again, it's also the different. Like, there's so many ways that you could take this.
Yeah.
And it's just. We're not stoned. It's just there's so many theories out there that you could go, well, if you look at it from this part of it, that's, it could go that line. If you look at another way of it, you could go that line. There's just, it's so nuanced. And I don't want to say layer because it feels more three-dimensional in terms of what's happening. It's not just like an up and down. It's all angles. It's a 360 of all these things that are occurring in this sphere, in this universal sphere, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I mean, do you got anything else to add? I mean, going through the entire show, seeing this ending, how do you like how do you feel?
I feel like the way they ended it with this, I remember being frustrated. It was like, oh, another cliffhanger ending, until I kind of like came to my personal theory, like the end of Firewalk with me is how it ends. We just never get to see how Cooper, and like the way I think he's like in that loop, kind of like what you're saying, like where it splinters slightly, but like with the Hot Wheels thing, so it's slightly different each time he's trying to save Laura, but eventually, he ends up getting, it's the slowest hero's journey in history because we don't know how many times he's been stuck doing this. But my theory is at the end of Firewalk with me, him and Laura figure out a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we see her at the end of that, she's in a different dress and different things. She doesn't look like the Laura we saw throughout that whole movie. That's why I see it like that. But it's there's so many questions, Paul. But the biggest is, did they ever save the Pine Weasel?
In one dimension they did. In one dimension they didn't. In that theory though, okay, bring that up. What if that's what the whole point of the second season Civil War, the Confederate War thing was?
It's an interesting theory, Paul, but I think that was just bullshit writing from people who had no idea, who were spinning out of control with a franchise they didn't know how to deal with.
Right. I know I agree with that, but there's so much there because you got the movie, you got all these things that are occurring, and there's a link there. I mean, it makes you wonder, even going back, like as we talk about this, going back to even some of the things from the Secret History, like, is it all from the same timeline? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it not from one time, like this part's from one timeline, now we're going to go here, but this is an alternate timeline. It's all this skewed timelines?
It could be. I think Secret History, some of the discrepancies in that is cleared up in Final Dossier when I reread it over the summer. So I think Secret History and Final Dossier fall into the world of Twin Peaks that we followed from season 1 and 2, and most of the return. I think the return at the end, we see it spin out into a different continuity, a different world, a different timeline, a different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like where I stand. Again, I'm not set in stone. I think about this a lot when I watch it, and then I'll think of a different theory that'll totally just like collapse that one probably like 10 minutes after we wrap up this podcast for good.
Right?
Like, son of a bitch. It all makes sense.
And we could talk about that. Again, we have more to do, and we're going to keep doing other podcasts. That doesn't mean we can't always come back to this and look at this on different things as we do more reflection, as we think about things. Because who knows? Again, we may get a second thing on Netflix. Because of the Wisteria. Again, I don't think it is. You don't think it is, but it could be.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know what Lynch has up his sleeve, but yeah, it's great because this is what great art is, and it's weird that it came out of a TV show because great art rarely, in my opinion, comes out of a television drama. But it's so in depth that we're able to like swim in those waters of the mind and and that's what Lynch has said, the magic of, like with Twin Peaks and his other things, like he likes his audience to be the detective and he sprinkles those clues out. So that's what I like jumping in these waters, deeper thought,
It does. It's the joy and it's the frustration of being a Lynch fan, right?
Oh, there's frustration being a Lynch fan.
What's that?
There's frustration of being a Lynch fan.
There is frustration of being a Lynch fan. But again, I like these deeper conversations than having than having something very close-ended. Like, we wouldn't be having a podcast if this was a standard top cop drama, FBI drama. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
do you think Frost and Lynch both kind of kept a lot of this ambiguous because even they don't want to know what the real? In a sense, like, they have an idea, but like they don't want it concrete, so let's leave it ambiguous.
Honestly, my thought is that I think Frost would prefer more of a. I think Frost has an idea of what he wanted. I think Lynch had an idea of what he wanted. I think part of the reason why we get this is that the two never met in the middle. And I think they both have what they want in it, but they. I think it's left that way not because they don't want to do it. I think Lynch has an idea of an end. I think Frost has an idea of an end. I don't think they meet. So I think this is the compromise.
Could be. Who knows?
Yeah, that's my honest thought. I do. I mean, knowing Lynch and in the interviews and things that we've seen and watched his movies over the years, I think he has a director's vision of what he thinks the middle, the beginning, middle, and what the definitive end is. But he's not going to ever tell the audience. And I think he's very smart enough to the way that he films things and does things that he goes, it can be done in a way that can be up. I can put this in here. That might mean this. It could mean that. It could mean that. To me, it means this. I think he's intelligent and methodical enough of a mind to do that. And I think I think if Frost had not been involved in this episode or in these episodes, I think we would have gotten something way more far out with less with less dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't know. I mean, for all we know, the more ambiguous stuff could be Frost. I mean, these guys are just. I mean, we're not in the writers' room. I think they might have just. They have their own ideas, and like you said, they met in the middle. But I think like that's what makes it work. Mm-hmm. Is that it's ambiguous, and they kind of lucked out with that.
I think there is that. But I lean towards this idea of. I mean, I watched On the Air, and I think On the Air is the is it's kind of the same way. Like it's very schizophrenic of a show, and I could see why it didn't last very long. And I think, that also strained Mark Frost and David Lynch. And but yeah, I would love to believe it's something like that, where they just, they have this similar idea, they're going down the same path, and they want to do that, but I just don't see it. That book reading with David and looking at the Secret History and how that was all written out, and all these things, and all the effort that Mark Frost put into that, and none of it really having a point in the entire 18 episodes, other than a few key pieces in it.
Yeah, they're pretty key.
They're pretty key. But when you look at the whole book in of itself, which is an awesome book, it's so fun to read. But when you look at that, and then you look at what we got, I mean, out of that entire book, maybe 20 pages? 20 pages is important.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. That book was more fan service than because I don't think The Return was ever intended to be fan. In fact, The Return, originally, when they're coming up with ideas for it, none of it was going to take place in Twin Peaks. Like,
Yep.
These two were like going on a more existential, and I think kind of packaged what was going to be the, some key elements. Frost put it in a book, which kind of gave more background, because he's a writer. I think this was like beef up like these themes and shit from the first two seasons, given more context.
Yes. And I know that they didn't, again, and I think that was more Lynch that didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I think it wasn't more Frost that was like, let's do this. Am I wrong on that?
I think they came together and decided to do it. I mean, I remember when they started working on this, Lynch hadn't made a movie since Inland Empire. Like, it'd been 10 years. I think this kind of sparked his desire to make shit again, because now he's, he did the Netflix short film, and now he's doing another thing. Like, I don't know. It could have been Lynch who said, should we return? We don't know. I mean, Lynch is not the first time he's returned to Twin Peaks after it's gone. You remember, he went and did Fire Walk with Me. This is a sandbox I think David Lynch really likes to play in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mulholland Drive was originally going to be Audrey Horne Goes to Hollywood. I mean, as much as he kind of like downplays Twin Peaks, it's been pretty heavy in his projects since the show went off the air. So,
yes. And again, the other thing that I'm with you on that I don't think is what's the word I'm looking for here? That why we won't get another Twin Peaks is because we both know that it almost killed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was just, I mean, it could be a smaller project if you went and returned. I don't think it would be an 18-hour long movie, but it was like in Room to Dream. His health just started declining because making a movie is it's a pretty stressful. You're dealing with all these elements, especially as the director. It took its toll. I think in the book he says this. It made him realize his age in a sense, because it's just like it was hard for him to keep up with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I think, Lynch always has different ideas outside of this world. And, I'd like to see him do something different. When he's on his own, he does like more of the surreal stuff. I think Lynch benefits from having a writer, in a sense, working with him.
Yes.
Or working off of something. That's why I really like Wild at Heart. because you get
Yes.
that Lynch surrealism, but it's based in a book, so it has a beginning, middle, and an end, where Lynch could just play in the middle forever.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Like if he could make a movie of all middle, he will.
I'm surprised he didn't do something like Old No Country for Old Men, which is just start and end in the middle. I'm really surprised that Lynch hasn't done something like that. And the other thing why I don't think we'll get Twin Peaks again, too, is I think this was very painful coming back 25 years later and dealing with the mortality of a lot of people that were part of it and aren't anymore. And we've lost more now in just the 3 years, 4 years now that the third season happened. So I just don't think I personally I couldn't do it mentally.
Yeah, it's rough, and it's and that's the thing. He didn't hide the age stuff, with the exception of Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's we saw the log lady ill. I mean, that was real. I mean, like Hawk has gray hair. Shelley has some wrinkles, and it's they didn't hide behind it. It's like kind of like So I'm guessing that might have been rough because it was even for us the audience is jarring seeing these people that kind of like for 25 years before were kind of like trapped in ember in our brains of how we remember them, and seeing them kind of different was a little weird.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was jarring to see them a little different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Shelley. I mean, Magic. She'll always be gorgeous. Shirley. She'll always be gorgeous. It's just it's what it is. But it was very jarring. I mean, by God, Bobby does not look the same at all. Seeing Annie with a gut was jarring and a little depressing to me. Lucy, God bless Lucy, she looked the same. Nadine hasn't aged a day. The genetics on her are fan-fucktastic.
Oh, God.
Jacoby, I mean, he aged. He did age.
I mean, he's like 90 now.
Yeah.
He was a little older when the show aired.
And you and I remember something. I want to bring this up. Speaking of different dimensions and things like that, you and I both remember reading that he had died of a heart attack years ago.
Yeah.
We both remember reading that, but it's not in our universe. It didn't actually happen. It was a Mandela effect.
It was weird. I mean,
yeah.
Life is weird. Memory's weird. Things I think, fuck, it's strange, but yeah, it's weird. And it doesn't help when I'm jumping in these deep waters, like with the Return,
right? Dealing
with that very kind of idea. I mean, Cooper creates a Mandela effect in the Twin Peaks world we know, as we'll find out in the final dossier.
We will find out a lot in the final dossier, won't we?
Yes. This was a fun return for me. I was glad we could watch these episodes and talk about them and go deep on them because there's a lot to unpack with the show. It's just been so much fun, and it's just like weird theories and. We sound like crazy people, I think, talking about it. Just imagine, like, never seeing an episode of Twin Peaks and then sitting down and listening to our podcast talking about part 8.
Right. That would be... That'd be difficult.
That'd be almost as jarring as never watching an episode of Twin Peaks and sitting down and then watching part 8 as your kickoff. Imagine that.
God, that'd be fucked up, wouldn't it?
Fuck am I watching?
Yeah, what the fuck is this? And again, that's why I think I feel bad for anyone who jumped in this season, the third season, didn't watch the first two. Boy, not a place to pick up.
No, not at all.
No, not a place to pick up. So, yeah, I don't. Oh
And
God,
Paul, I'm glad about your restraint when we're talking about the actors aging, that you decided not to punch down on Al Strobel again.
you fucking, you fucking bastard. Yeah, he no, I'm not gonna punch down on Al Strobel, jackass. So, but yeah, we got the book, and I've actually started reading the book again.
Yeah.
And
I'll go through it again here for the next week. I just want to say, like, for that other book, I think we might take a week or an extra week off, just so I can kind of wrap my head around it a bit more, if that's okay.
Yeah, you started reading it?
Yeah, and it's just a lot of things going on that I'd rather like read and be able to digest instead of trying to rush it in a week.
I would agree with that, because it's got some concepts in it that I never thought of.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to the pine weasel.
All right.
Or the big question, what happened to the dancing guy?
Yeah.
He slammed that locker and he did that sideways dance and we never saw him again. Forget where is Laura Palmer. Where is dancing guy?
Where is dancing guy? I want to know more about that.
Maybe that's Lynch's next project.
Right? Oh my God, that'd be amazing. I mean, that's what it is. It's the story of the dancing guy.
That'd be like, those are like pipe dreams of mine. It's like, if they ever made, the only Star Wars thing I'd ever watch again is if they did a movie on Max Rebo and his band. It's just fucking weird like that. Whatever, Mandalorian, whatever that shit is. But, you make a show about Max Rebo, I'm plopping my ass down.
Oh, my God. Jesus Christ. Well, well, we know that we're going to be doing, so I would, to kind of, as we get to the end of this, and again, we went a lot of different places. I think we're going to go more even after the book, because, but it was kind of difficult to watch this one because we've been doing this podcast now since February.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been,
almost 10 months now,
It's going almost 10 months now. Yeah, it's going almost 10 months now. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's about that. Yeah, we're about to the exact 10. I think we started on the
24th. Well, that was technically, the day Laura Palmer died in the show. I think it was the 4th the night we started recording.
Yep. Because I think we both were talking about celebrating Twin Peaks Day beforehand and went, hey, let's do this podcast.
Yep.
So now the show, we've gone through it in its entirety, except for really season 2. We glossed through the last.
Yeah, we missed large chunks of that bullshit, and I have no regrets.
I have none. I don't think anything that occurred in season 2 that we missed would have given us any influence or any insight into what the fuck we saw with this episode 18. None of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, after this, what do you have going on other than this? What do you have going on?
The Joe Down, we're doing John Wick month.
I love it.
Episode, John Wick Part 2 is coming out this week. I've been kind of busy at work, so I had to take Sunday out. I couldn't do the review on Sunday, but those movies are just, it's not the deep waters of Twin Peaks, but sometimes you just need some mindless action. At least I do.
Yes.
Especially I might throw on Part 2 tonight to watch, let my brain relax after discussing, these timelines and dimensions and fucking, Diane's trauma. There's all these things, that we kind of went into, and we weren't even able to dig as deep, I think, as we'd have liked, because I think we're still kind of processing all this.
Well, yeah, and again, there's some things that are going to come up in the book that are going to help shed some light on this. And I really think that's going to be us really digging into a lot of the theories and things throughout the seasons.
But I think we nailed it with the Diane thing. And again, like I went into this interview after a while, or not this interview, this review, really jazzed up because I really liked how they dealt with that.
Yes.
With Diane.
Yes.
I loved with the return that they, this character that was kind of like, what was it? A plot device of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a tape recorder for the first 2 seasons.
Right. Right.
And it's like a well-rounded character. And we didn't even get to real Diane until the very end.
Yes, and the other thing I want to bring up on that, which I thought was very tasteful, since you mentioned it, dealing with the trauma, is I'm glad they showed like that she would not have been able to ever. Her and Cooper could never be together because of what Mr. C did.
No,
it would never happen.
That's the beautiful things. Like she was given like that freedom away to escape that memory. Like Carrie Page, no. After a while, she'll have no recollection. I'm sure a lot of people of abuse wish they had that. It's just it's such a horrible thing, and it's like, at least in the fictionalized world, this victim was given some peace.
Mm-hmm.
There's
yes. Yes, I think Lynch did that very tastefully.
Yeah, I do too. It was, because we saw it throughout the show how traumatized she was by that.
Absolutely. She was absolutely traumatized from it. I mean, even though it was her tulpa, she was traumatized.
Yeah, even the tulpa, retains those memories, I believe, at least some of them. But yeah, and then that trauma kind of mirrored, and that's another thing I forgot to bring up, is like her trauma kind of mirrored Laura's in the Fire Walk with Me.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense.
Yes.
But again, there's so much going on that we're gonna miss a whole lot.
Oh,
there's a lot going on.
Shit. The other thing we didn't talk about that I want to touch upon real quick was we glossed over it, but was the return of Dougie to Janie and Sonny. It's a small scene, but I thought was really interesting was, they got the Dougie that was Dougie because he's just like home.
Yeah, I was like, well, he was lucid in the lodge. So maybe this is like a compromise of the Dougie of before and the Dougie now.
Yeah,
it did like that little home.
Yeah,
he seemed like he was able to drive himself there. So, well, hopefully they get more of a loose.
That's my thought too. Like, which Dougie are they going to get? Are they going to get Cooper Dougie? Is it Lucid Dougie? Is Dougie ever going to be able to work for Lucky 7 Insurance again? What's going to happen to Bushnell? I need to know these things.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. We know Mike is, he's in the Black Lodge, but he is an entity of good. But, and who knows what his story is. Maybe he has to pay his penance in the Black Lodge before he can go to the White Lodge. We don't know, but yeah, I don't think he's going to give a brain dead Dougie to Janie.
That was my hope.
Otherwise, Cooper's going to have another timeline splinter to go and fix that for eternity.
That fuck up. Yeah, so I just thought that was really interesting because it's Dad home. Oh no, it's that Dougie.
Oh. But yeah, there's like just so much things. And I don't even remember. Did we even touch upon some of the names in the show?
No.
Like Dale Bartholomew Cooper is D.B. Cooper.
Nope.
Famous guy who hijacked a plane.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Arias Truman, obviously. There's some interesting uses of the names too that we just, again, there's so much going on. It's hard to keep track of all of it. But yeah, well, I just wanted to bring in the D.B. Cooper because I just loved that when I finally figured out his credentials.
And let's be honest, your favorite though is Snake.
Bobby killed a cop.
Bobby killed a cop. Again, we want to remind you that the guy that's on the police force killed a cop.
He was, to be fair though, he was a crooked cop, so.
Yeah. And we brought that up. He was a crooked cop. But yeah, it was nice to see Ray Wise come back, even for the short bit, as Leland.
Yep.
My God, that guy doesn't age either.
And it was funny because like when this came out, or a little before this came out, Fargo did a season 3 where Ray Wise was like a very Lynchian character in that, and Eastwood's daughter was also in that show in a flashback to like the 1960s or 1970s. So yeah, a little overlap with another show I enjoy. So I thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just so much, right? But I think we could go on and both of us barely talk, right?
Even our plugs just went on 10 minutes long.
Oh God, yes. So you're doing John Wick.
John Wick month, and with one mystery movie to cap out the year 2020 with. And
yes.
Paul begged me after we stopped recording last time, and he's not only the only people who know what the mystery movie is me and Joe Brown.
Nope, he will not tell me. I do not know the mystery movie. And I'm excited to find out what it is. I am. So when's that one going to launch? What date is that one coming out?
Oh, that'd be the last week of December at some point. Yeah. So we have that. Our Office podcast, Bears, Beats, and Bobbleheads, we brought up, is on hiatus until 2021.
Yep.
As is Cast That Movie.
Yep. However, I started recording a Stranger Things with a new co-host who goes by the name of Griffin E. That's Griffin E. And we'll see. I'm going to bring that one to you as a potential pilot for in addition to the Joedown.
It's not fucking Ted Mills, is it?
It's not Ted Mills.
Because, I will banish you from the Joedown forever.
I promise it's not Ted Mills. It's not that fucker Ted Mills.
He still owes me a box, Never got that box.
He does owe you a box.
Yeah. I'm just throwing it out there for your big advertiser.
Yeah, we'll see what comes with the advertising in 2021.
All right. But yep, we're at the end of the actual series of Twin Peaks. Next week, we'll be discussing Final Dossier. I love that book.
Me too. I love it.
There's like one of the first chapters has a narration by Albert that I love. He writes a medical exam. It says great.
Yes.
Again, Albert and Cole Files should have been a spinoff that we should have gotten but didn't.
Oh my God, I wish.
We can still get the Mitchum brothers. Come on, Lynch.
Maybe that's what Wisteria is. Maybe he's been listening to our podcast. So it's like, these guys want a spinoff? I'll give him a spinoff.
It's the Mitchum brothers.
Yep.
Holy shit, that'd be amazing.
That would be amazing. It'd be the only John Belushi project that I would enjoy watching.
Jim Belushi. I mean.
Oh, Jim. I'm sorry, Jim Belushi.
John at least made some good movies.
John made some great movies. Just don't watch Wired. That's what I should do for Cast That Movie is Wired. Fuck. That's a deep dive on that one, but now I'm getting off on it. So yeah, off on a tangent, not off on it.
You're getting off on it. We know.
We know. That's why I'm distracted this whole time. But yeah, so
there's lurid details of our personal lives people listening to.
I get off on the death of John Belushi movies. Oh, Jesus Christ. Take us out before I get even darker.
What year is this?